So Maria's story. Maria was a girl that I met when I was doing some research out on the streets of London and speaking to those who were destitute and living on the streets of London. So welcome to Word from the Street and me, David Ford from Expert Link. So Maria, I've changed her name, by the way. It's not her real name. I was doing some research out in the centre of London and speaking to those who were destitute and on the streets, living there. And I came across a young girl. She said she was about 20, she said, but she looked quite young, I have to say. And her English wasn't very good. She was from one of the Central or Eastern European countries. And her story goes something like this, that when she was 5, she got put into care in that country for that system to look after. And from the age, as soon as she went into that, she started getting abused, including sexual abuse. And when she managed to get away from the system when she was old enough or whatever, and she came to the streets of London. She didn't speak very good English. She didn't speak. She wasn't that articulate or could speak that well, and she was finding it really hard to engage with services. You couldn't speak her language, and she was struggling to find work, and she was surviving on the streets of London. So on the 1st of December, there's going to be some new changes to the immigration rules. They're ordered by the House of Commons on the 22nd of October of this year, and they come into effect on the 1st of October. And there's a section in there, section 9.21.1 and section 9.21.2. And it talks about rough sleeping, and it says permission to stay may be refused where the decision maker is satisfied that a person has been rough sleeping in the UK. It also says where the decision maker is satisfied that the person has been rough sleeping in the UK, any permission held by that person may be cancelled. So what sort of effects does that have on Maria? Well, if Maria gets caught rough sleeping, she can get deported and moved away. But here's the situation. When I was speaking to Maria and talking about actually you're struggling to engage, you can't find work, and it's, life is absolutely appalling. She was so vulnerable, unbelievably so. And when I talked to her, there was nothing on earth that would change her mind from or persuade her to go back to her country of origin, go back to the system that was abusing her. And she talked about that's rape, and she talked about, and she's not going to go back. There's nothing on earth that would make her go back to her home country. And she thought the best option for her was to be surviving out on the streets of London as a vulnerable young woman. That's absolutely incredible. So what other things might happen to Maria now? Well, I have a concern because when the immigration laws change and they can people can be refused the right to stay here just for the simple fact they've been rough sleeping, Maria could end up being swept up and deported. Unless you've been anywhere close to Maria's situation where you've been abused, you can't possibly imagine the fear that she must be having of being deported back to her country, or the fear of actually going back there, regardless of being deported, just going back there. The fear is so strong that she wants to stay on that live as a vulnerable, destitute human being on the streets of London. So there has been some stuff so far where people have tried to change the rules. Crisis have written a letter, and it's been signed by, I think, close to 50 organisations. Luton Homelessness Partnership have put a letter. We've published a statement on our website, and just like lots and lots of organisations. But this is obviously not loud enough, is it? Because nothing so far has changed, and people like Maria are still really vulnerable, and something does need to change. Because for Maria, if she's running from the system from her own country and then starts to run from the system in this country, where's it going to lead her? It's going to potentially lead her or push her into the arms of those who would abuse her. It's potentially going to push her into the arms of people who'll take her into slavery. And we have an anti-slavery bill in this country. but it's be pushing her into those arms. It could be pushing her into the arms of those who abuse her and perhaps use her in the sex trade. She's so incredibly vulnerable right now and frightened. So what can we do about it? Well, I'll tell you what we could do is we could share Maria's story. We could start putting a human element to it and talk about this vulnerable young woman who's run and fled from abuse in her own country, who is now destitute and vulnerable on the streets of our capital city, and because of the immigration laws is potentially pushed into yet more abuse, either through slavery or the sex trade or something like that. That's what we can do. And I think if we share Maria's story, maybe hashtag Maria's story, you know, but if we share her story, maybe that's our part of trying to get these rules changed. And I know, hang on a second, I do know that some of you are going, well, actually, there's a lot of bad apples out there. Yes, there are a lot of bad apples in everywhere in society. Not just those sleeping rough, you know, most of them are caught up in trauma, but there are bad apples. But we don't punish the whole of society for one or two bad apples. And this is exactly what this rule is doing, you know. So we can share Maria's story, hashtag Maria's story, and maybe it'll get to the right places, to the right people. Maybe people who can apply some influence to have these sections 9.211 and 9.212 withdrawn. Let's hope so. Guys, you can help share that, press the like button, hit the share. Love to hear your comments, and yeah, and if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. That's enough for me from Word from the Street and David Ford. Until next time, guys, love you all. Take care.
Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. No matter what.